Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of Apple TV Plus, Lisey Story, Episode 3, which was titled Under the Yum Yum Tree. So excited to be breaking down this episode. It's a full-on spoiler discussion, and I can't wait to break it down with you all. But before we dive into the discussion, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. It would mean a lot to me if you all can like and share this review. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate all the support. And in those comments, if you stuck around to see episode 3, because we'll talk about the audience score and the kind of the thoughts on the show so far. But if you've seen the 3rd episode, let's talk about it. What'd you think? Your pros, your cons? What'd you think about Amanda and the story that we get about Scott's past? And when will Lisey finally accept Booyah Moon does exist? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. So let's talk a little bit about it. I reviewed this show last week. It was a non-spoiler review, and a lot of you all seem to be kind of split on the show. You know, some people are excited for it, wanted me to come back and review it, which I'm doing now. Some of people like, this show is boring, it sucks, I don't read the book, I haven't read it, I don't like the show. So it's kind of hot and cold. In general consensus, a lot of people don't like the show, but I'm a Stephen King fan. I like a slow, methodical show in this type of genre, horror, drama, you know, family tragedy, things of that nature. So I'm gonna stick around because I think it's gonna have a good payoff. At least that's the hope, right? But I'm not gonna lie, just my general thoughts on this 3rd episode. It's my least favorite episode of the 3 thus far. It was, I hate to be just so generic and say it was kind of boring, but it just didn't really move the needle for me. The narrative just felt like it was kind of stagnant. I feel like we're still in the same kind of episode 1 and 2 territory. We really haven't progressed the story. We keep going back to the past. We learn more. Obviously, it adds context to Scott's, you know, kind of his backstory, him and his relationship with his father and his brother Paul and all that stuff. All that stuff is fine, but I just feel like we're not getting much with Amanda. You know, we see that she's obviously going through this mental breakdown and you know, what she does to herself and all this stuff, but it's just the show isn't really moving at a pace that I would like it to move. Now, of course, there's 10 episodes. We still got 7 to go. They can pick up the pace next week. But this 3rd episode, I wasn't all that happy about it. I wasn't all that too pleased with the story. But there are some things to kind of take away from it as we kind of break it down. But again, let me know your thoughts, your pros, your cons, and let's just have a discussion about it in the comments. So as the synopsis reads for Under the Yum Yum Tree, the bowl hunt continues and leads Lisey to a moment from her past when Scott shared a confession about his family and his tragic childhood. So as we open the episode with Amanda, we see her at Booyah Moon yet again, which is very interesting that it seems like she can just go into Booyah Moon, where we see Scott and Paul and his family, they have to turn on water to enter the Booyah Moon. So I'm not sure how she's able to go in and out just like without water being present. Let me know, for those that have read the book, if that's something that's similar to the book or if it's something new to the show. But we'll talk a little bit about Amanda in this episode because I just feel like I love the actress that plays Amanda, but I just feel like the character isn't really doing much for me, like literally not doing much, but also just narratively speaking, there's not a lot of meat on that character quite yet, but hopefully things will pick up. But going back to, we get a little bit of more backstory of our other supporting characters, like Jim, for example. We hear a little bit about his criminal past of a sorts, where he was at a conference where there was a gentleman talking about he wasn't a Scott fan, he wasn't a Scott believer, and we see Lisey sees this video clip that the officer plays, which, by the way, that actor Han from Fast and Furious, we see Jim gives that non-believer the pie of death, which is a reference to one of Scott's books, and we know that these people that are just like diehard fans of Scott go by the name of Deep Space Cowboys. And we also get a little bit of backstory of Jim in regards to he was homeschooled, because we see him playing this video clip that he put in like in a subreddit thread, that he was homeschooled and that he really loves Scott because he gives Scott the credit for teaching him how to learn, teaching him how to read, teaching him how to feel. So he really is a diehard fan of Scott and really gives him all the credit for who he is as a person, which we don't get a ton from Jim, but you can obviously tell by the previous 2 episodes and this episode that he's very like stuck in the mindset of a child. You know, we learned that he homeschooled. I wonder if we'll ever come across to who his parents is and if they play any significance to this show, if there's someone that's in Booyah Moon, if it's maybe that's what his whole thing is. He wants to go to Booyah Moon. I don't know. Only time will tell. But Dane DeHaan's okay so far. But again, just his kind of childlike mindset and him being like this villain. And we'll talk about how the episode ends. But he's He's interesting. He's more interesting than Amanda, and I'll say that for sure. But we move forward as we see Lisey finds another clue for the bool hunt as she finds it in Amanda's cookie stash. And this is where the meat of the episode really kind of takes place. And this is kind of the heart and soul of the episode. We see this flashback of when Lisey and Scott went on their honeymoon to this lodge. And they are just, they're in love. They have this gentleman that's happy that they're there. They have the honeymoon suite, all that stuff. And we see them find the Yum Yum tree, and this is where Scott tells Lisey all about his childhood, which was very tragic. But I feel like the context of this, again, I feel like we could have had this moment in last week's episode. But as I digress, we see this backstory, we see this flashback of his father as he sees the good in Scott, but doesn't see the good in Paul, and it's in his blood. As he says, my dad said that the bad is in your blood. As we see that for the Landons, they think that when you get when you have bad in you, you have to cut yourself and get the bad out. As we see their father essentially forcing Scott to jump out of this window, and if he didn't do that, he would continue to abuse and cut his own son Paul, which obviously was tragic to see, and again speaks to just how they were raised, and again this kind of mythology and this lore that they've been brought up to believe within the Landon family. As we get this kind of conversation about their father mentions about the fear of losing Scott to Booyah Moon. Now I am to assume, again I haven't read the novels, but him saying that he is afraid of Scott losing him to Booyah Moon and kind of losing himself in his own imagination. I think that that's what happened to their mom and to their father's wife, that she was someone that is her family is more of where that kind of comes from, even though that he said his father knew a little bit about the Booyah Moon. So I guess I'm confused on if their father introduced their mother to Booyah Moon and she became obsessed with it, unlike, Lisey could care less about Booyah Moon as we see in this episode. But I wonder if Paul and Scott's mom is trapped in Booyah Moon, and maybe it's the woman in that veil that's communicating with Amanda. Let me know your thoughts on that. Of course, if you haven't read the book, don't spoil anything, but I think it's safe to say that their mom is probably somewhere in Booyah Moon, and maybe that's why Scott has went back to Booyah Moon to find his mom. I don't know. We'll see. But as we move forward, we see and hear that Paul has died. Now, we don't know how he died, what happened to him. As we see at this point in the episode, Scott's upset. He's crying. He talks about how much he loved his brother. He hasn't loved anyone like he loved his brother since coming across Lisey. We see Scott takes Lisey to Booyah Moon, and particularly to Sweetheart Hill. Lisey is not too impressed. She does not want to go back there. She doesn't even really want to talk about what happened in the honeymoon, because she just says, hey, we'll talk about the lodge and the food that we got from the people that was there, but let's never talk about, Booyah Moon or her experience under the tree. So meantime, as we kind of wrap up the episode, we get Amanda, who again is coming in and out of reality from, Booyah Moon to back to reality, as she sees Scott, and Scott's telling her to be quiet. So we know that Scott is in Booyah Moon, but why is he there? Did he put himself there? Did he kill himself to go himself there? Only time will tell there. But we see that he's there, and we see at this point that Amanda has gotten scissors. She cuts herself in reality, and in Booyah Moon, she spells out the word, help me, Lisey. She needs the help of her sister to break her out of this imagination, which again, I'm really not too sure on how she's able to get into Booyah Moon a lot differently than Scott has been doing, and we seen in the show so far. So we see Lisey almost gets Amanda home, because we see Amanda like, I just want to go home, let me home. But at this point, we see that the many faces has come up, because everyone's telling Amanda to be quiet. So of course, this many faces, this Booyah Moon is a place, it's a safe haven for Scott and his brother. But we know that there's this many faces. Is it some type of metaphor of just like facing your fears, facing your tragic past? We know Stephen King has a big thing about tragedy and past shapes you to who you are as an adult. We get that in a lot of his stories. It comes to mind. So it'll be really interesting to see again this escapism, this imagination, this Booyah Moon, this many faces monster, and getting all the lore, the backstory of that. But again, it was a place for them to go, for Scott and Paul to go to escape their abusive father. So wrapping up the episode, we get all that stuff there. We in the meantime, Jim is setting up a diversion to burn this farmyard. As we see him accessing Scott's paper, we see at this point that Lisey is back home. She goes into the barn, and we know that Jim is there. So we are to assume that Jim and Lisey will officially meet, and hopefully, she doesn't have that shovel, so we'll see if he's going to live up to his promise that it will hurt her for not giving up Scott's work. So again, there's things to take away in this episode: the backstory, the bull, the pain, the good, the bad, and maybe thinking that Paul and Scott's mom is in the Booyah Moon. But what happened to their mom? What happened to Scott? What happened to Paul? What happened to their father? I mean, there's so many questions. That's what's really kind of keeping me intrigued with this show. But again, the Amanda stuff isn't quite working for me. I feel bad for her, obviously, but I just want more from that character. Maybe get a flashback of who her husband is and who he had an affair with. Just give me a little bit more meat with that character, as well as Darla. I love Jennifer as an actress, but I want to see her do a little bit more than what she's been doing. She's kind of one-dimensional in the show. Julianne Moore is fantastic. Clive Owen, all the acting's fine. It's just the characters are just a little stagnant, and I want to see the story progress. So hopefully next week we get that introduction, that confrontation between Jim, between what we get with Lisey, and see how all that plays out, and just give me a little bit more. Let's move the narrative a little bit forward, and not just be so slow and so methodical in the storytelling. But my least favorite episode, but there are some things to take away. But let me know, for all those that did watch episode 3, if you're still a fan of the show. If you're not a fan, if you're gonna bail out, if you're just gonna wait for all the episodes to drop and to be available to stream all at once, let me know your thoughts in the comments. But of course, I'll be back next week talking about episode 4. But again, I'm making these videos to interact with you all, so let's talk about it in the comments. Pros, cons, thoughts, theories. Let's have a good time. As always, make sure to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the bell, that way you don't miss any of my other reviews for Apple TV Plus content. We got Low Key. I review the first episode on this channel, so check out all that content. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe. We'll see you in the next video.